Hi, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel for TechStrong Gang. Welcome to our Tuesday show. We've got some great stories to cover today. I mentioned the HPE Juniper merger. We're going to be talking a little bit about open telemetry and the infinite workday. We've got an all-star panel, an epic panel to go over to talk about this today. Let me introduce you to them. As is our custom, our panel members who've been here before, we're not going to spend a lot of time introducing them. But real quickly, we've got Stephen Foskett, J.P. Morgenthau, Mitchell Ashley, Barney Schneider. Let's call out the new guy. It's his first time on TechStrong Gang. He is Futurum COO, friend of ours, Dan O'Brien. Dan, welcome to the gang. It's great to have you on here, man.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. Hey, Dan, being it's your first time, just real quick, if you could give people a little bit of your background so they know where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've spent my whole career in tech, spent about a decade in semiconductors, semiconductor industry, about 5 years on Wall Street. Most recently spent about 7 years running the analyst relations organization at IBM and joined in January as Futurum Group President and COO.
Excellent. Hey, man, it's great to have you on, Dano. All right, let's jump into things. So, this wasn't a surprise to me. I knew they were going to somehow settle it. I just didn't know how. But Mike, HPE and Juniper are a go. What's the deal?
Yeah, and as these things go, this one's a little more peculiar than most. Apparently, there's some licensing of source code from the AI stuff that HPE built, and then they're going to get rid of a business unit that seems to be just basically hanging off the edges of HPE as it is. But Stephen, you track all this a little more closely than I do. What's your take?
Well, it's an interesting situation, as you said, because of all of those reasons. I mean, the big news, and I think the thing that we should really focus on, is that this is a big victory for HPE and poses a significant challenge to Cisco, finally. Cisco is the undisputed 800-pound gorilla of the networking space. They have fought hard whenever there has been a new networking market opportunity that has appeared. Lately, they've been really battling in the AI networking space, both in terms of networking for AI and using AI to manage networks. Now, one of the big competitors for the latter there, especially, is Juniper with their incredible Mist AI operations, AI ops software. And that is one of the angles that has been taken on by the DOJ here. So first off, what does this mean to HPE? Well, it means that HPE is going to be a credible competitor to Cisco at the high end of the market, which is good for the market. It's good for customers. It's certainly good for HPE. And frankly, it'll probably be good for Cisco long term as well, because, everybody benefits from strong and healthy competition. But what is the cost? Well, apart from, $14 billion, the cost is that HPE will have to offload a couple of elements in order to make the DOJ happy. One of those elements, as you mentioned, is the instant on Aruba networking platform, which, that's sort of an interesting thing. That is a small product for small businesses. It's an interesting one. It's a good one. It's one I've actually personally used. And frankly, I think that it will be a useful acquisition for some competitor in that space, though pretty much everybody in that space already has something going on there. But I think that it'll be scooped up pretty quickly. The big thing that's got my head scratching is the AI ops offload. So as you said, the agreement says that HPE has to offload, or not really, partially offload, enable other companies to use Mist's AI ops source code. Essentially, they're going to have an auction where the DOJ will allow up to 3 competitors that they are allowed to veto to bid on access to the Mist AI ops source code and access to some key engineers who developed it. Now, they won't actually take it over. They're going to allow 2 buyers that will be actually able to take that source code and solicit and hire those engineers but they won't get the Mist name. And HPE will also be able to continue with this as well. So essentially, what we're seeing here, if this goes the way that it might go, is that Juniper Mist AI Ops might become the de facto AI Ops software in networking. If, let's say, a company like Cisco or Arista was to be the winning bidders on those licenses. But I guess the question is, why would they want it if it's not exclusive? I guess the only thing that they're really getting here, apart from the source code, is the access to those key engineers. But there again, they actually have to hire them. They actually have to attract them and bring them in. So it's a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, it's definitely unusual. So, Stephen, I have a slightly different take. I don't think this was as much about making HP competitive with Cisco, as it, from the DOJ's point of view, as it is setting up a market where it's HPE and Cisco, and just HPE and Cisco. Who else? You mentioned Arista. I mean, I think between these two companies, they probably glom up 70 to 80% of the market. That's a two-company market in my mind.
No, because the leader in AI networking is a company you may have heard of called NVIDIA. And frankly, all of these companies leverage Broadcom's switching silicon. So I think there is a competitive market, and Arista is a lot more powerful than you might guess.
In terms of market share, where are they?
Distant. I guess it depends on the market, but yeah, they're a solid competitor, but they're not near Cisco.
Then the other thing is, though, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wouldn't Cisco and Arista be an automatic veto, or are they allowed to get that source code? Because at the very least, if they got it, they would just slow HPE down like crazy.
Well, from the sound of it, well, this is another weird thing. It sounds like it has to be two. It can't be one buyer, and it can't be three buyers. It has to be exactly two buyers, which makes me think they know which two those are. And I suggest that it's going to be Cisco and Arista.
To me, it's such an unnatural act, though. Why not just open source it and give it to a foundation?
In a way, they almost are open. So like they're gonna, kind of pseudo open source it by getting these other folks in, and it's gonna be like a fork, right? Where you're gonna have, everybody starting from the same place, and then the buyers will all take it in their kind of
well,
unique
not
direction.
everybody, just the three companies. If they open source it, that opens it to a whole new. Anyone can go in and try to do something.
First projects where there are two or three main contributors and not a lot else going on.
Maybe they don't want Chinese companies to take it either. So as part of that,
that very well may be the case, Mike. Right?
And I think that's what the veto is all about: is to make sure that Huawei is not the company that takes it.
Or ByteDance. Just kidding. So when does this deal close?
and it's unclear. I don't think they actually have a hard date on it yet. Stephen, did you see a hard date?
I'm scratching my head. I don't know. I think it's going to close pretty quickly, though. My contacts with the folks at HPE, well, first, they are excited. They are happy. They are ready to go. And so I think the answer is as soon as humanly possible, because HPE wants to run with this.
Well, I'm sure they will have to announce it last week at Discover.
Let me ask this question, though. So I've been looking at this, we're going to kick Cisco's butt for the last 2 decades plus. And Juniper couldn't do it, and HPE couldn't do it. And what makes you think that Juniper plus HPE is going to make a fundamental difference? Stephen?
Well, I think that it will make a solid difference simply because of the fact that Juniper already has a really good products and really good customers. And the HPE will automatically get product and customer access like they've dreamed of for years. I think that there's so much synergy here. There's actually surprisingly little overlap considering how strong HPE is in sort of the broader picture of networking. When you look at the networking verticals where Juniper plays and the networking verticals where HPE plays, there really isn't as much overlap as you might think. And I think that is going to be hugely additive. I think HPE made a really good deal here.
Speaking of a good deal, I remember a time, Dan, you were on Wall Street, right? $14 billion. That's a big deal, man. $14 billion. In today's world, it's $14 billion. It's not like Masayoshi Son is building a new city in Arizona or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big number anymore. I mean, you've seen, VMware, Google, in their acquisition for Wiz. I mean, the IBM Red Hat deal. I mean, there's been a lot of deals that have gone north of that. Nothing north of 100 yet. Maybe that's the ceiling, the kind of new ceiling at this point. But
Maybe,
yeah,
but
more of a mid-sized acquisition for tech these
But
days.
doesn't it? Look, I'm a child of my age, right? But when the .com bubble came on the scene, Juniper was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Seeing it go for a mere $14 billion seems like a bargain to me.
I think, doesn't it really also, go to the state of movement to the cloud as a whole in general, away from data center? I mean, infrastructure build out, where companies were spending a lot of that money on building. What did we lose after COVID? We lost people going to offices, and we lost build out of data centers, right, with the cloud. So you see a diminishing number of, enterprise buyers for this technology at this point in time. And you have companies who are now owning that technology for themselves, that own the entire supply chain, that do build out data centers. So, it's not like Juniper did anything wrong. I think the market changed on them, and their buyer is dissipating.
That's true. But look, we might be entering the biggest data center building boom, certainly since the .com bubble, but I'll venture to say even before the .com, even including the .com bubble. I mean, the amount of money pledged to these, whatever you want to call AI data centers, is staggering. Is there a place for Cisco, HP, and Juniper? The HP Juniper, I assume it's going to say HPE.
Cisco's already in there. Cisco's already in there as a partner for a lot of these. But, and like I said, the Amazon and the Googles, they have they're their own supplier, right? They own the supply chain for a lot of
on Broadcom Silicon, as Stephen mentioned. Certainly.
And hey, networking in the enterprise isn't going away. And that's HPE's strength, but also you get the wireless, you get the core networking out of Juniper. It's a great match. I think it bolsters up. I mean, HPE's acquired who? 3Com and, Meraki, an untold number of companies.
And don't think that, Juniper was asleep at the wheel here. They're not some lumbering giant who missed the phase. They are really competitive in the AI data center. And as I said at the top, Juniper's Mist AI Ops is probably the best AI Ops platform in the industry. And they have some of the greatest engineers. Juniper has really been running forward to try to move into new markets. And that's all HPE now. I think this is just incredible.
I think that's the bigger picture, Stephen. Take a step back. This is a good deal. It's made sense for a long time. It's great to see some of the roadblocks cleared, but the competition for these companies are the biggest companies in tech, and getting to a size and scale and a portfolio breadth that can be competitive with hyperscalers and NVIDIA. Certainly, I think as we've seen the AI data center build out, networking has in many ways become kind of a critical bottleneck, and bringing the compute side together with storage on the HP side, now with a more enhanced networking portfolio. Certainly, if you look at what HPE was talking about last week at Discover, it was all about networking, AI, data center. Let's not forget HPE's acquisition of Cray in the high performance computing space. All of these things really do build a more compelling portfolio out. I think the big question for them is, how much of the AI processing and networking is going to happen, in the cloud versus not in the cloud. That's really kind of the big question for this combined entity going forward.
Yeah. I agree. Let me bring up another thing. Then it's something. I'll hark back to something I said right off to Stephen. Happy for HPE and Juniper, and Stephen, you're right. A good competitor is going to bring out the best in Cisco. Part of the DOJ's antitrust mission is to make sure we have markets that are open and allow for new competitors. With AI especially. With these kinds of deals and the kinds of money being invested, the capital requirements here, is this just a big boys game? Is this the new version of the gentlemen's clubs, where it's going to be impossible for up and comers to break in? Are we setting ourselves up for that?
I think you look at all the big markets where CapEx is really the name of the game. Semiconductor foundry, hyperscale data centers, they've all really gravitated to, one dominant player with a couple other strong competitors, right? At the level of spend that these things require, I think it is going to be some sort of oligopoly type market setup.
And that's actually the word, Dan, an oligarchy, kind of. Steve, I think you're on mute, Steven.
Sorry about that. I'll just point out right now, in terms of the AI networking market, it is NVIDIA that is the dominant player. Even in Ethernet, NVIDIA rules the AI interconnect. So they've got Ethernet and InfiniBand. Everybody is gunning for them. Cisco is, HPE is, Dell is. That's another company we haven't mentioned. Dell is really trying to sell into that AI data center market. I think there's an opportunity to have some real competition there, and there's huge amounts of money being invested there, not just on GPUs, but on networking hardware.
I think the proof in the pudding is going to be whether or not prices actually move, because so much of what we see among these cloud infrastructure providers is the prices don't move all that much. And it's a fine line between what Dan's calling an oligarchy and what other people might call
oligopoly.
Okay, so he's combining them.
I think there's another part of this networking, the real boom in networking in data centers is east-west traffic, GPU to GPU. And there's
that's where NVIDIA shines.
Yeah, that's where NVIDIA, there's a lot of interesting startups there. And Juniper, I believe it's their EX series. They've got some devices that are specialized in east-west. I'm not sure if they're that heavy into GPU traffic or not, but that could be an opening for them as well in the data center business.
Listen, in data center, NVIDIA has become so dominant that, the big problem I think we have in the market is that we really need one good alternative. And I think right now we've got a large number of kind of so-so alternatives. And, this deal and, similar deals to it, I think are really good for the market, because ultimately we need a good NVIDIA competitor. And there's probably not going to be a market where we end up with 10 good NVIDIA competitors. A market where we end up with 1 or 2 is probably the best that we can hope for.
And if you're interested in the technical aspects of this, I'll just put in a quick buzz. We've actually had all these companies present at Networking and AI Infrastructure Field Day. We've had, NVIDIA, HPE, Juniper, Arista, Broadcom, Dell. They've all given their pitch.
Cisco too, Steven.
Cisco. I'm sorry I missed it. It's so many. Yes, and if you look at those videos, you'll see the aspects of each of those products.
They're all available on techstrong.tv. All right, that's our plug right there. Hey, let's break on this block. We're going to come back and talk about open telemetry consumption, energy consumption, and resource consumption. Someone's got to pay for it. You're watching TechStrong, gang.